All right, I can see MetaViewer.
Okay. So, so far there's been some great conversation, great presentations, and I think that going as the second AP automation offering that's really being highlighted today. We all know how the workflows go from ingestion, right? Capturing the metadata. That's where within MetaViewer, that's where we use our AI engine to pull that metadata out and just ensure that we can match that not only with the vendor card within BC, but also then understand based on what that invoice is, what the content of that invoice has, how that's then going to be, how are we going to GL code it? How are we going to send that for approval and just create all that, less human interaction and less human touch points and just have it naturally go through the automation and almost autonomous AP process. So with it, MetaViewer, we are a role-based company, and so each individual who uses MetaViewer is going to have a different access, different abilities to not only see what's going on within the solution, but also to be able to kind of dictate how they want to move a document along or set an approval, etc. So we're starting off today with Julie, who's our AP clerk. She spends all of her days in MetaViewer, and so she comes in, sees that there's 52 invoices that are in the queue waiting. So AP prep is where you spend most of your day. She will come over and she sees that there was a bunch of invoices that seemed to have similar numbers, and so she just thought that was interesting. So she comes and opens up Fabricam, and as she's looking through it, she kind of notices that when you're utilizing MetaViewer, anywhere here where there is a magnifying glass down the left-hand side, that correlates to where, if you click on it, it will show you where it's pulled that number from over in terms of within the invoice. So if you click here on this area, right, for the PO number, it doesn't have a PO number because it's not recognizing that within the system, but there's an order number. So what it's done is it's taken that order number and it's just put it into a PO reference. In case there is a PO or it's not, the PO is not fully posted within the ERP, you can still search based on that order or PO number. However, without there being a PO, it will have to be, made to be a non-PO invoice. But that's not really the real reason we're using this document to highlight where we are today. This document look, there's 7 different pages on the document, and it seems to have various invoice numbers. So we go through and realize, how often do we get a PDF that comes in from a vendor and there's multiple invoices at one time? So then you have to take it back out, manually break it up, and then resubmit it back into your AP process just to move that along. Now within MetaViewer, as that document comes in, if I showed it this way, I have nothing to demo, but we built in the PDF prep. So as that document comes in, every time the invoice number changes, it will just break off that invoice and create it as a separate entity, knowing that it might have to be again GL coded or go through a different approval process depending on what the invoice is for. If it's multiple projects, if in manufacturing and there's different projects happening, it allows you to be able to put the invoice in front of the proper project. But here, just like you would if you were using Adobe, very similar process. You can manually click through if you want to just be able to do this yourself and not rely on the AI agent to do it. But knowing that it's just based on invoice number, I mean, you can do it based on every third page you can break it, but that's not as consistent. At least if the invoice number changes, that's probably your best bet. So now we can take this one PDF that had 7 invoices, and we can just split it. So now by sending it back out to split, it's going to run itself through the engine and then be able to come back in. Again, this will happen automatically, but if I showed that, I have nothing to demo. So now that it's come back, it comes back and it looks at the pages we're seeing here. We have, we're starting on page 2, but it's, the first one, it's on one page. You have your invoice number, and you start to notice here that all the different areas that are highlighted, so anything that's highlighted in your invoice is what's being picked up over here in your metadata. And so you start to see that things are actually, being highlighted appropriately. Everything correlates. You can see the dollars and cents. And so you're like, okay, this makes a little bit more sense. And you agree just to move it move it onwards. And so from there, you can just code and reconcile it. It'll stop me because I didn't put what kind of payable it was. As I was mentioning before we got into the splitting, you need to disclassify that it's a non-PO invoice because there is an order number. It doesn't want to just make that assumption in case there was an issue within the ERP, but that PO does exist. It wants to give the benefit of the doubt that let's just manually just confirm that it is in fact a non-PO. Now we will send it to code and reconcile. From here, we go through, we can understand, make sure that it aligns, make sure that you have, a $0 difference, and then we just pick the account that it's going to go into. Repairs and maintenance expense. If you wanted to split this up for some reason, if there was the idea of like half it was going to repairs and maintenance and the other half was going to go to a general account or go to a different expense account, you can easily just add a line and then manually split it out, change your debit here, and then it will bring that into the next line to push it forward. Now that we've done that, we can say it's coded and we can go to approval. Now, if it is a PO, there is no approval at this point. The PO has been approved unless you want to set up that rule. As long as the three-way matching of your receipts, your PO, and your invoice, if they're all aligned, then we just push it on through to final review, so then we can post it up into BC, and from there, then you would be able to once again look at it before you post it for payment. But if there is maybe you've only received half of the shipment or the invoice has the wrong quantity, then you can just go through and manually alter. Okay, we're going to pay 5 of the 10 that we've ordered because we've received that, and we're not going to pay until we get the next 5. Or there's a dispute with the distributor, you can just decide you're going to short pay or pay differently depending on what it is that's arised. So here we go to approver. We'll send it. It's a pretty small dollar value, but we can send it for the controller and even just throw another approver on just to see. Go to the CFO, and that should be suffice. I mean, it is under $500. Realistically, this could just be automatically pushed through. Now what I've done here, though, is this isn't the default approval matrix that would generally occur for an invoice this size for this company based on what's in the vendor card. However, you can still go ahead and do that, but it does just make sure that it makes you aware that you don't have to go this far along if you didn't want to. So I'm not going to update it. I'm going to leave the default, but I'm going to push this forward the way it is. So now that's gone off for approval, and it will just bring me to the next document out of the 7 that was coming up, and we can go through and do the same thing. Now you'll notice that as these documents come up, the metadata that it pulls is not just from the individual invoice, but we're also then going into BC and from the vendor card, understanding what your early pay terms are and what your payment terms are, and just making sure we pull all that data over so that everything is congruent and in concert. That way there's no anomalies or nothing that occurs that was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize, or I didn't, there's no chance of the I don't know or I didn't think, because MetaViewer does all that thinking for you. And then down here on the right-hand side here, this is where all of the journal tagging and just that audit trail is recorded. Not only does it record kind of what's going on with the invoice from the time it's been ingested to the time it's been posted up into the ERP, but you can also add a note if you wanted. Once you add a note, it's there forever. So please keep it professional. But package 7. So we can add that note. So that way when it goes to the approver on this one, then we'll be able to just confirm that, they've seen this, they understand it's part of a 7-point invoice, and it's all, again, just tracked here. So I'll say it's fine. I'll send it for coding. So now I'm going to go and let's see what's happened with, excuse me, the first invoice that we sent over. So I'll stop being Julie for a minute, and I will come back in as my AP manager. So I'll be Kathy. And so Kathy's really just wants to see where invoices are, if there's any bottlenecks, understand, okay, is something been sitting for a long time, or is there an expedited one that needs to get approved? Should I be jumping in front of that? So Kathy's going to go in. You'll notice her view is a lot nicer than the AP clerk's view. Anyone can have we call it the classic view or the new dashboard. Kathy just likes to go in, see the visual, have a representation, move on with other things that are on her to-do list. The AP clerk likes being able to go in there and see that line by line and understand, where the flashing bells are that need her attention right away. So here we can come and we see there it is. Every time an invoice comes in, it goes to the bottom because the ones at the top have been sitting longer. So there's a better chance they need to be actioned ahead of time. But it's also lets you don't have to then find it within an alphabetical order or a numerical order. Last in is right at the very bottom, so that way you can always scroll down to find it. We'll go here and find the Fabricam. There's no notes, but we'll add one for the CFO. Improve 6 more coming. And so we look, there's nothing that's out of the norm. It's under $500. We're going to approve it. We know that these values are all equal. And once you've approved it, then it's just confirm it wasn't a quick flick. Now it's out of your queue, and you go to the next on your queue, and it brings you back to the list. Now, when we sign in, if Kathy, we sign in as our CFO. Let's be Lisa for a moment. Lisa, she doesn't get too many times that she has to be the approval, and if she does, she's normally well aware that it's coming because it's a large dollar value. But in this case, it's just a $500 value, and here's my note here that says approve 6 more coming. If I don't want to see every transaction that's happened with the invoice, I just wanted to see the user notes. I could just filter down so I don't have to scroll through, what other people have written. I can just find all of that here, and then Lisa sees this, understands that she's been asked because it's part of the repair and maintenance budget that there's a very stern, a lot of eyes on that, and so she's going to approve it. And now that that's been approved, it's in her queue, and it is Kathy's approved it, so it's gone back now to Julie for that final review. Right, there's nothing left in Lisa's queue here, and so now we'll go log back in as Julie, and by doing that, sorry. See, sometimes you can just quickly click it off, click in properly. Let's try this again. And so we come back, and then we can find here in final review, there's 4 of them pending. And so you can come back in, we see it down here for 458. There's the note. It says there's 6 more coming. If I step away from looking at user notes and just go back again, seeing all the journal tags that's been there, we know that it's who's approved it, how it's moved its way through, right? Both the manager, controller, plus CFO have approved it. So then at this point, Julie says we're good, and she's going to export it to the ERP. Now that's been sent off to BC, and it's just on to the next document that's waiting for final approval. Other areas, as the documents come in, we can either use a folder and just scan. If you're getting paper trails, you can scan them, take a picture, and send that in. Or again, send it to an email, and then I think it's every 15 seconds we're reaching into that email to pull out those documents out of your mail, make sure that it is an invoice, that it's not something fraudulent, that it's not. If it's a duplicate, it'll tell you. It'll still pull it out of the email, but it'll tell you when you go to open it here, and it won't let you process it into the ERP until you can go send it back to purchasing to have them confirm, because there shouldn't be duplicates, right? You don't want to be making a double payment. Other areas to look at is the exception handling. If there's areas that maybe something's been rejected or it's been sent back, why has it been sent back? It's going to be highlighted. And then anytime something does not get properly imported and have the data extracted, it'll be captured here under the capture failure. And so that allows you to at least know, like, oh, there's obviously another invoice that I need to bring in, and allows you kind of to circle back around. I went really quick today, but I was trying to help us get back on time. I always jokingly say at work that I can't always bring you back dollars and cents, even though we work in AP automation, but I can be a broker in the currency of time. And so with that, Amy, hopefully I've helped you get a little bit closer to being back on track, and I appreciate everyone's time. Happy to answer any questions, and would love to set up a meeting. Thank you.